Now, the Department of Employment and Labour has embarked on a nationwide hospitality sector inspection blitz. On Wednesday, the team went to Sandton, where they raided over 6 establishments. 4 workers at Tang restaurant were found to lack proper documentation and taken into custody by Home Affairs and SAPS. The inspection blitz follows the emergence of a video by a disgruntled Babel former employee who alleged inhumane treatment of workers in violation of the Labour Relations Act. Joining us to discuss the allegations of more restaurants possibly violating the Labour Relations Act is Wendy Alberts. She is CEO of the Restaurant Association of South Africa. Good afternoon, Wendy. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. So it seems that specific viral video has sparked a wider debate on exploitation of those in the hospitality industry. We're now almost getting a sense that the treatment the former employee alleged could be taking place at several restaurants, and the department was on the program this week confirming wide-scale violations at these restaurants. Your take on all that we're seeing as an industry body?
It is very concerning what's happening at the moment, and it feels like the raids are really seen to be deliberate, and it's really affecting everybody in the industry. You know, we should be working towards protecting employment, protecting our industry, protecting businesses. And we feel now, you know, that as we've moved through this for the last few days, that they can't really use the restaurant industry to clean up a historic mess. This is not really a restaurant or an industry issue. It's a national issue. And as we look at so many of these elements that have taken place, a lot of people and a lot of innocent people have been arrested, and they claim that the arrests are due to alleged illegal foreigners working in our industry, which makes it an immigration issue, and it makes it a Department of Home Affairs issue and not a Department of Labour or a violation of Department of Labour.
Okay. Can I please just interject there? So you're saying this is, of course, a Home Affairs issue if we're talking about immigration, that there are probably foreign nationals that are employed at these restaurants, undocumented foreign nationals, to be specific. So granted, many would say, of course, it is an immigration issue and one that has been acknowledged by Home Affairs Department and government at large. But then the aspect of not complying with the rules of the country then would fall on the owners of these restaurants, because they would know that you must only hire those that are documented. Would that not be the case?
So as we've moved through the last week with all the raids that have taken place, we need to separate the 3 issues. One, there's been a lot of mention of business compliance, which we absolutely agree. You know, businesses need to follow the legal stature. They need to be regulated. They need to be compliant. They need to be registered for all the different licenses and obviously the different compliances. So that's one story that we agree to. The second part is obviously whether we're addressing working conditions and the minimum wage, which again we've clarified over the last week, you know, that we are governed by the Bargaining Council, and as a collective agreement we can make certain decisions amongst the staff on how certain conditions are agreed to, and that commission workers are allowed within the scope of the Bargaining Council. So I think I'm
going to want us to touch on that. Pardon me again for interjecting there.
Sure.
I'm hoping that we can also touch on the salaries, because just for the benefit of our viewers that might have not caught that specific interview where you stated, at least gave clarity on the commissions and how wages or minimum wages are addressed in this specific industry, I'm hoping that we can still go back to that. But then you can take us to the third point now. So we've dealt with business compliance, minimum wages, and then you say the third element is?
Is the element which is obviously a national issue, which is not exclusive to the restaurant sector. This is a country issue. It crosses over all sectors of business, which is a foreign national issue, which is an immigration Department of Home Affairs issue. And we've sought a lot of expert advice, and we are dealing with a lot of immigration experts and consultants and Home Affairs, and there's still inconsistent communication that's come through again today. We had a number of innocent people being arrested. And we don't really know what is happening in terms of the ZDPs. We've been alleged that there are legal documentations in terms of court orders, Rule 53, and yet there are still people that have been arrested. So our restaurateurs really do believe that they're following a legal process, they've consulted experts, and yet we still find ourselves in these positions where we've got innocent people tonight that are sitting in prison and that are going to spend the weekend there. So we have to unpack this. We need to have greater consultations with the Department of Home Affairs. We need to look at ways of doing things better together to preserve our economy, to preserve our industry, to protect our businesses, to protect our staff.
Wendy, it would be remiss of me not to challenge you a bit more on the national element or the one aspect you've spoken of immigration. Because in this instance, you're perfectly correct that you need to work together as an industry with government or the Home Affairs Department in this respect. But it almost seems as though you're seeking to absolve the industry of its role here, because compliance is both ways. If they're going to enforce, they must be regular, have their labour inspectors coming to visit, but you've also got owners of restaurants in very prime locations that should also be complying with laws. That it would be wrong of me as an owner to employ somebody who's not documented, because it creates the impression that I'm looking to exploit this person. How am I paying their UIF if they have no documents?
Absolutely. So, if we look at this in totality, we've got a vast industry. Our industry makes up close on 20,000 establishments. And there are a handful of establishments, and exactly like the audit showed on the viral video, where they had not met any compliance. No matter what industry you're in, if you have not been compliant, you need to be taken to task, and you need to obviously deal with the consequences that come from that. But when we're talking about immigration and the foreign nationals, there's inconsistent communication that's coming from experts, from inspectors that come to us. We're still waiting for verification on the ZEP. We're still looking for clarity on the waiver of the VSSs. We're still waiting to see what's happening with the extensions. And all of these conversations are not clear. So these need to be cleared up first before these raids take place. So it's not that our restaurateurs are scant to the law. We are a formal industry. We have got establishments that have been going for very many years, and we have got high investments into these businesses. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to put our businesses at risk or our people at risk. And the last thing that the restaurateurs want to do today is to be vulnerable where they're getting raided or potentially raided. Mm-hmm. Where we are hurting innocent staff that are working in our businesses, and we are violating them, and we are causing all this trauma and stress, or even putting our industry in negative light, which is exactly what's happening right now.
Wendy, then to what seems to be commonplace of paying staff commission only, is this an industry norm?
So within the scope where we've been now highlighted, the Johannesburg and Pretoria areas are governed by the Bargaining Council. Within the Bargaining Council, it certainly allows for the provision of commission workers, provided the commission is not less than the minimum wage. And this is where the confusion has happened over the last few days, which we needed to clarify and say that we are entitled to pay our staff commission.
You're saying that you are entitled to pay them commission and commission only, as you state, just for clarity, that for as long as it's above the minimum wage.
Correct, that's correct, excluding tips. Tips can be decided on the collective agreement, which varies from restaurant to restaurant, and that is an agreement that is taken by the majority of the staff on how their working conditions will be in that particular establishment. It covers things like uniform deposit, it covers things like transport, it covers things like breakages, charges, deposits, and any other elements that they feel collectively they want to agree on.
And then as an industry body, how do you help with regulation? Because there are those, of course, that were found to be non-compliant.
Look, we've had hundreds of calls, and we're fielding calls every single moment. The restaurateurs are very concerned. They want to be compliant. We don't want to have this negative light in our industry, and they are looking for clarity on a lot of elements which they're unsure about, which hasn't consistently been communicated. So we are reaching out to the Department of Home Affairs. We've reached out to, again, try and reach the Minister of Home Affairs to have a discussion, to do things better, to be able to work together in a more functional space, that we can protect the workers, that we can protect the industry, and that we're not traumatizing the staff and young managers who are in our industry. And we need to move forward, and we need to build the economy and continue to contribute positively to South Africa.
All right. Wendy, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Wendy Alberts. She's CEO of the Restaurant Association of South Africa.